It's an honor to be here and to see all of you. And please forgive me for my ridiculous American accent. And hopefully we'll be able to move ahead. I'm going to talk about emerging strategies for the reconstruction of heritage structures in Antakya, Turkey. And very quickly, this is what I'm going to talk about today. I'm going to talk about the significance of Antakya, or Antioquia, as many of you know it, its intangible heritage and its history of earthquakes. I'm going to briefly introduce you to the two projects that I'm involved in. One is the St. Peter and Paul Greek Orthodox Church, and the other one is the Antakya Synagogue. And then we'll talk about the emerging strategies that we're seeing taking place there. We're paying very close attention to those because we're going to be adopting them in the work that we're doing as well. I wanted to very quickly introduce you to our team. You can see them on the right here. That is Mohammed Arslan, who is with the Turkish Ministry of Culture, Hongxi Chow, who is my client at the World Monuments Fund, Evangelius Sharlak, who is an art historian, Emre Kashale, a Turkish engineer, member of our Iskarsa, myself, Yavuz Oskaya, who is an Ankara-based architect, Umut Almaç, who is also an engineer, Turkish engineer, and finally Buse Serengul, who is the architect that we're working with on the ground in Antakya. That's where she is located. So all of these people are helping with this particular project that we're going to talk about. This is where Antakya is located. It's located in the Hatay province. You can see that it's very close to the Syrian border. Indeed, it was a part of Syria until about, I think it was 1938 or 1939. On the left, you can see the topography of Antakya. Right there where Antakya is located, there is a major tectonic fault, which I will show to you. But first, we're going to talk a little bit about the significance of Antakya. It was founded in 300 before the Christian era. And during the Roman period, it had a population that probably reached over 1 million people. And this was one of the three great cities of the Roman Empire, along with Rome, the capital, and Alexandria. So beneath the present city of Antakya is a huge archaeological site. It's about 8 meters down below ground, so there's a very large cultural layer. Antakya has been repeatedly destroyed by earthquakes, and we'll look at that briefly. And the thing about Antakya that makes it unique is it's always been multi-denominational and multi-ethnic. It has a population of Turks, Arabs, Christians, Jews, Kurds, and Armenians. And of course, because of what's happened with the earthquake, that is changing, and that is one of the things that we're concerned about, because we would like it to maintain its multicultural makeup. Okay, so we're going to be talking about intangible heritage, and the reason we're talking about intangible heritage is because just about every building in Antakya was built after 1872 because of the different earthquakes. So the Jewish intangible heritage is that there has been a Jewish congregation here for at least 2,200 years. The Jewish ccongregation as it exists today is about 15 members. The rabbi and the rabbi's wife were killed. They were killed during the recent earthquake. And the community, we're not sure that they're going to come back at all, but we're working with their property. The Christian intangible heritage is if you look at the New Testament book of Acts 11, 19 through 26, you'll find out that the word Christian was first used in ancient Antioch. And it is believed that the Apostle Peter and the Apostle Paul both preached at that church that's shown on the upper left, which is believed to be the oldest church in existence. The multi-ethnic and multi-religious character is being threatened now, and you can see that in the far right is a multicultural monument in Antakya, and you can see it's two hands, and the hand on the left is holding a crescent, a cross, and a Star of David. And because of recent events, the Star of David was vandalized and removed, and so the city fathers have removed all of the other things as well. So, and the Islamic intangible heritage is close to northern Syria, and there's a mosque there, the Habibi-i-Najjar Jami, which is claimed to be Turkey's oldest mosque. But of course, as I said before, just about everything there was built after the last earthquake. So this is what the faults look like. I don't really need to talk to you very much about this because of Göran's presentation, but in the inset in the lower left, you can see the history of earthquakes in Antakya, 115 CE, 526, 1138 AD, which is considered to be the largest recorded earthquake in the history of the world. The ones that are listed in red, those were times when Antioch was completely destroyed and it had to be reconstructed. And of course, the latest earthquake before the one in 2023 was the earthquake in 1872. And just about all of the buildings that we're looking at were built after that time. So, went a little bit too fast on that one. Okay, so Göran already showed you that, but over on the left you can see that Hatay province had the greatest number of deaths, casualties, and collapses of buildings. So let's take a look at Antakya. This is a Google Earth image. I believe this was maybe from 2022, but you can see to the left of the river is what you would consider the modern city, reinforced concrete apartment buildings. A lot of them were high rises. And on the right side of the river, it was the historic center, mostly unreinforced masonry walls, vaults and domes, and wood construction, along the lines of what Göran was showing us. And you can see that both properties that I'm dealing with are in the historic center. And this next image is what Antakya looks like today. Now, this image was taken after a lot of the cleaning had taken place, and you can see that the modern city, they hardly saved any buildings at all. They tore them all down. They're still doing cleaning in the old city, but you can see the damage was fairly significant. So let's take a look at some of the street scenes. This is a typical Antakya street scene in the old city. I'm going to run through these very quickly. This is the Sheikh Ali Jami, which is an image from the outside. This is what it looked like on the inside. This one was, the walls are at least standing, but the dome came down. This is the Ahmadiyya Jami, which was very close to the bazaar. This was a project that we wanted to become involved in, but the Turkish government said they would take care of all of the mosques. By the way, this building has been torn down. It doesn't even exist anymore. And this is the Habibi-i-Najjar Jami, and the very significant damage on the interior. Another image from the Habibi-i-Najjar. So this is the St. Peter and St. Paul Orthodox Church. It was built in 1900. The bell tower was added in 1931. And this is what it looked like on the inside when it was constructed. Russian engineers and architects were involved in this. And you can see there was a lot of horizontal metal constructions that were tying the spring points of the domes and arches and vaults together. And this is what it looks like presently. The cleaning hasn't taken place here yet. I think we're kind of lucky because the people who are working on the cleaning, they have to work their way through the modern city and then get into the old city, and they're kind of figuring out how they're going to do it. But the destruction was fairly complete except for a couple of walls. And this is where the congregation sometimes holds services. They erected a tent. They don't meet every Sunday, but they meet on a periodic basis. But the congregation seems to be fairly strong. By the way, this isn't the only church in Antakya, but this is this was once the seat of what was called the Antiochian Greek Orthodox Church, which was moved to Damascus, I don't know, maybe 150 years ago. And this is what the church looked like before it collapsed. These drawings were done by the office of our colleague Buse Serengul and her firm Bus and Bus Mamarlik, and she was working with the congregation before the earthquake, so we were lucky that they were able to do laser scanning and drawings of the church. So we've got these really wonderful drawings of what the church looked like, and we're going to be using those very closely. And this is the Antakya synagogue, and this is something that's not unusual in the Middle East. With the synagogue is actually in a courtyard behind a commercial building, so you have to go through a corridor in this commercial building. It's on the main street, and you go into a courtyard, and there is the complex of the synagogue. Very simple structures. This is unusual that there wasn't that much damage to this particular building, and so with this building, we're going to be able to follow a lot of the precepts and concepts that Goran was talking about, and what Paulo was talking about, and we're going to be using the Escarsa principles on the rehabilitation of this particular building. And because it was in good shape, Buse and her firm, they were able to go in and they were able to do a laser scan. So we also have really nice drawings. See, does this thing work? I guess it doesn't. But in the middle is the synagogue itself. There are two courtyards, and then there are little offices. It's a fairly small outfit. So with that, let's talk a little bit about the emerging strategies. Now, the Turkish government is working on a master plan. This is all that we've been given so far, and it was this map with a legend that's very small over at the left, so you really can't see that. But the red area is traditional trade, the bazaar area. The orange is the historical center where they are going to be promoting tourism and hotels. So we know that they really want to reconstruct this historic center the way it was. And the little blue dots, that locates all of the mosques, the churches, and the synagogue. So they really want this to come back. This is going to be a lifetime project. Buse is very young, and one of the times we were walking around, she became very emotional, and I told her, I said, this is going to be your life's work. So, and I won't be there, but she will, and I hope it's a good thing. Another strategy is the cataloging, storage, and security. What the Turkish authorities were doing, and constructors, they were going in, they were knocking down these concrete buildings, and they were taking them out into a field, and they were just dumping and making these large piles. Now, a lot of this was driven by the fact that there was a federal election coming up, and that was very important that the politicians were doing what they needed to do. However, they did set up this area in the outskirts of Antakya, and you can see that they kind of set up, it's almost like a streetscape, and there's an address, and they're taking these historic buildings and they're hauling the pieces and they're putting them in these particular areas. Security has been an issue. We've got a fence around the entire church. However, mostly people who want to take medals, they're able to get over it very quickly. It happens at night, and so a lot of the metals are gone. This image on the right is the synagogue, because somebody actually knocked a hole from the adjacent structure and went in to see what they could find. So this has been a struggle for us. A lot of the other projects, and this is one of the mosques right off of the bazaar. They're starting to put the pieces back together again. Now, is this going to be a good strategy for all of these buildings, or are we going to be able to find every stone and put everything back together again? My guess is most likely not. But I'm hoping that some of this stuff can be reconstructed. The mosque reconstructions are going a lot faster than the projects that I'm involved in. So we're lucky that we can kind of see what they're doing and we can follow that. I want to talk briefly about foundations, but I want to talk about the geology there first, because Antakya is in a valley that is what is called a graben, and this is what has happened in past earthquakes. You can see that part of the ground has actually dropped down, and on either side are where the mountains are, and this happened hundreds of thousands of years ago. And so the valley is a collection of alluvial deposits from the mountains, and this is not a very good soil to build upon. I was in Mexico City 2 weeks ago, and I was comparing this to what they have in Mexico City. Mexico City has terrible soils because it's built in these very deep alluvial deposits, and they had a lot of damage in 1985 during their earthquake. But we had something similar here. There was a lot of damage where the soil is soft, and where the city went up into the mountains, they didn't have as much damage. Okay, so the foundation strategies that are emerging there are either shallow piles that will have a mat poured on the top of it. Why shallow piles? Because we know that we have an archaeology underneath. A lot of it has never been looked at. Some of it may never be looked at, but they're still trying to respect that Roman layer. Second strategy is pouring a mat or a raft foundation, and that's where you pour a very thick slab and you build a building on the top of it. You basically are putting the entire building on one large slab. We are not too enamored with that particular approach. And the third approach, and they're doing this for the Parliament buildings, as I understand it, they're putting in a simple base isolation system. They're going to pour a slab, they're going to put a layer of gravel and some type of friction break, and then they're going to pour another slab on top of that. And as far as I know, and I can be corrected if I'm wrong, I don't have any examples of this being done in modern times. But this is a third type of approach. We're still considering what we're going to do with our foundations. And then finally, and this is my final slide, the strategy, and I know that Gurun was talking about the fact that we have these high center of gravity on these buildings with these stone domes and stone vaults. They are looking at putting in glue laminated timber, which I think is a fairly good strategy. You have to remember, these buildings are destroyed. They are old in some terms, but they are not like the authentic original buildings. So they're going to try to save the masonry walls, but they're going to put in glue laminated timber for the domes and the vaults. And you're lowering the center of gravity of these buildings, and that's an earthquake strategy, because it lowers the horizontal seismic loads on these buildings in case of an earthquake. And I was really happy when I was in Mexico City 2 weeks ago. They had a big earthquake there in 2017, and they're doing the same type of approach. only in their cases, they're replacing a lot of their masonry domes with metal domes. So with that, I'd like to thank you very much for your attention.